screen you'll see when you open 3Dcoat. Now 3Dcoat's a free software, so if you're working on your laptop at home, you can download this for free. It's on the labs at RIT. What I generally do is just close this, go under File, Import, and take the top option, Model, for per pixel painting. Okay, and now I'm just going to look for that file we made. I honestly don't remember where we put it. Here we go, and that's why I call it Sternum Maya 2 3Dcoat. Okay. Again, then I get this dialog box. I'm not going to change anything here. I'm just going to say OK. Now, I'm not going to paint though. I'm going to come over to where it says UV. And there's my map. Now, I can explain this to you back in Maya. But the UVs are the intersection of the edges. When you look at your file, when we look at the file in Maya, we see vertexes at these intersections, and the UVs are just generally right in the exact same place. But the UVs are coordinates for the surface so that colors and textures understand where to go. The vertexes are the math intersection where the two edges intersect. Now you can see it's kind of messed up. Here's what the map over here, that's what Maya saw as the UVs representing this shape. And what that is actually the original cube that I used to make that sternum. It's the 6 sides of a cube. So it never adapted to all my modeling. You notice that this, kind of hard to see, but this one edge right here, this one line is a bright green. That's because that edge is by default, just for some reason, set up or actually selected when I came in. Now I don't want that edge. You can see it better on this side. I don't want that. And if I put my mouse over that area, that kind of red blob you see there is the way 3Dcoat sees that UV map right now. It's a real mess. So fortunately, what's really nice is 3Dcoat's very, very easy to use. So the first step is to get rid of any of these seams that come in by default because they're never correct. So you clear all your seams. The next step then is to decide whether you want to mark seams individually or edge loops. So my first step in this case is I'm going to edge loop right there. And you notice the minute I did, I now made 2 colors, or at least 3Dcoat did. So it recognizes that edge as a boundary. What I'm going to do is actually move it down one more level, and I'm going to hold down the control key and remove it on the one above. So that I believe is where we figured the maneuver to be. I'm going to go down to the bottom. The one thing for you guys who are using Macs, you may find a little awkward. The controls for 3Dcoat are very similar to Maya, but not identical. You use the Option key. The left mouse does your tumble, the middle mouse does your pan, and the right mouse is your dolly. So I've still got my edge loop selected. I'm going to edge loop select. So now I've got 3 colors. Okay, got my maneuver, my xiphoid, and my gladiolus. And what I'm going to do now, this is what I was trying to describe to you. Right now, this edge and this edge, they've created essentially a hollow tube. And if I come to the back of the Maya, and this is why I put that edge in the middle. See what I have now to the right there? That's, if I come off my mouse, the shape you'll lose it. You'll see it again soon, but that's that shape now, cut down the middle and then spread out flat. Kind of like a dress pattern. or if you can imagine taking the seam out of a pant leg and then unfolding it, that's what it would look like. Now I'm going to do the same steps for these others, but they're not quite as obvious. Okay, so for the manubrium here, what I'm going to do is try to, still using the edge loops, I'm going to select that edge, that edge, that edge, and that edge. So now I have again the opening of a tube at the bottom, the opening of a tube at the top, and I'll go again on the back. Now see, again I have a unfolded surface. Here I just have the surface flat. Now what's significant about these seams, and the reason I keep putting them on the back, is no matter what you do, the seams where textures and colors meet, in other words, when this thing is folded, when it's unfolded, that's what you're seeing up on the right, and when we put it back on the model, it will be wrapped around or folded back into its position. Where those seams are, unfortunately, is almost impossible to hide. In other words, the textures and colors will never align absolutely perfectly right along those seams. So a workaround is to actually hide the seams in places where they're very unlikely to be seen. For us, since most of the things we're going to create are organic and by nature then have a more arbitrary pattern, not a mechanical checkerboard, it's not as critical. You won't likely see them anyway. So we've got the same dilemma now down in the xiphoid. So I'm going to try to do the same technique. I'm going to edge loop still, and I'm going to grab, if I can, make there we go. So now I've got my bottom. See, it's just one big flat plane now. And then again, like we said before, it's got the top. Go behind, and now we've got, everything's going okay, except for the problem that it's really not having fun with the middle there. You know what I'm saying? Right there. So what I may have to do is cut that window out. Now again, I'm going to mark seam. I want to get rid of that selection. Let me get larger so you can see here better. So I don't want that edge selected anymore. So if I hold the control key and select it, it goes away. And I'm going to do the same thing down here. So now, see, I should have a little better. Oh, I missed an edge right there. Here we go. So now, see, that comes apart, but it's still got a little overlapping. See that center, that kind of light pink? I'm trying to think what I've done, what I can do to get rid of that. Oh, looks like I missed these edges on the back. I'm sorry. So I'm treating the, there we go. So now that's the teal side, that's the purple, and then there's the orange in the middle. And I can cut the orange in one place, and now it's a nice flat shape. Okay, so now I've got all my areas, if you will, cut by virtue of creating seams, and you can see the light lines. But you notice this checker that the software, the 3Dcoat makes by default, it's still very distorted. It's all bunched up here, and there's none down here. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to say, what am I going to do next? I'm going to say unwrap. And what that did was take all those seams and unfold basically the UV map, again, like a dress pattern or a piece of paper. So now everything that was created by the seams, and now you notice that all those checkers, it's kind of a visual clue that you've done this correctly. All the checkers now, that checkerboard pattern is now uniformly dispersed between all the different faces. Okay, now I'm still not done, because now that I've unwrapped it, I actually have to say apply it. When I do that, it's going to tell me it can undo. It really can, but we won't tell anybody. I'm going to say OK. And now I want to export this. I'm going to get this menu box. I'm not going to touch anything here, not change any values there. I'm going to say OK. And so I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to say new sternum, but this time I'm going to say 3D coat to mud. So that tells me this is the model that has the correct UV map on it, and I can take it to Mudbox and start sculpting it. And you notice that by default 3Dcoat is giving me an OBJ format. This STL is also a relatively standard, and so is FBX, but OBJ I think is really the most universal of the three-dimensional formats. So we'll put that in here, say save, and then we'll go open it and see what it looks like.